My name is Elira Caldwell now, but 5 years ago, I was Elira Hall. And 5 years ago, my mother called me 3 days before Thanksgiving and said 7 words that shattered everything. Don't come home. Kalina doesn't want drama. No explanation. No apology. Just a door slammed shut on 28 years of trying to belong. I spent that Thanksgiving alone at a restaurant in Boston, watching happy families while I fought back tears. I had no idea the strangers at the next table would become my real family. I had no idea that 5 years later they'd stand beside me at my wedding as my legal parents, while my biological family watched from the shadows, realizing they'd been replaced in every way that matters. November 21st, 3 days before Thanksgiving. I was in my studio apartment in Boston packing for Connecticut. The pumpkin candle flickered beside my non-refundable plane ticket. I'd even bought a new burgundy sweater. The color Mom said looked good on me. When her name flashed on my screen, I smiled. "Hey, Mom, I was just about to text you my flight." "Alira." Ice cold. "I need to tell you something. Don't come home this year." I laughed nervously. "What?" "Kalina doesn't want drama. She's pregnant again and doesn't need the stress." "Drama?" My grip tightened on the phone. "Mom, I haven't even talked to her in months." "Exactly. And let's keep it that way. You know how you get." "How I get." "I just asked why she didn't invite me to her baby shower last year. That's not drama." "See? You always make everything about you. Kalina is trying to have a peaceful pregnancy. She doesn't need you bringing up old grievances." Her voice hardened. "You understand?" It wasn't a question. It was a command. The line went dead. I stared at my useless ticket as snow began falling outside. I understood perfectly. I'd always been the acceptable sacrifice. The memories flooded back. My 16th birthday. Months of planning. Pizza, bowling, 3 friends. I'd saved for months to buy a blue dress. That morning, Kalina failed her calculus final and needed consoling. My party was canceled in 20 minutes. "Don't be dramatic, Elira," Mom said, stroking Kalina's hair. "Your sister needs us more. We'll celebrate next weekend." We never did. The dress stayed in my closet with tags on until I donated it, unworn. College graduation. 4 years of late nights and part-time jobs. First in my family to graduate with honors. When they called my name, Elira Marie Hall cum laude, I scanned the crowd for my parents. Their seats were empty. They arrived 2 hours later. "Sorry, sweetheart," Mom said, checking her phone. "Kalina had a prenatal checkup that couldn't be rescheduled." Dad squeezed my shoulder. "Your sister's baby is more important than a ceremony. You'll have other achievements." But I wouldn't have another college graduation. This was it, my promotion dinner. 2 years ago, I'd made art director. I reserved a table for 5 at an upscale Italian restaurant, ordered champagne, wore my best blazer. 20 minutes before they were due, Kalina called Mom. Another fight with Brad. Nothing serious, just dishes. But she was crying. "You can go by yourself, can't you?" Mom said. "We need to be there for your sister." I sat alone for 40 minutes before giving up. Paid for 5 people. Took an Uber home to an empty apartment. When I called the next day, Mom was irritated. "Not everything is about you, Elira." I learned early. Don't be so sensitive. Stop making everything about yourself. Why can't you just be happy for your sister? So I became smaller, quieter, invisible. I swallowed hurt, apologized for having feelings, stayed silent. I thought if I was easy enough, undemanding enough, maybe I'd finally earn their love. 28 years old with a worthless plane ticket, I finally realized there was no amount of small that would ever be small enough. I called Dad, hoping he'd stand up for me, just once. Football game in the background. "Hey, kiddo." Cautious. "Dad, did Mom tell you?" Long pause. "She mentioned it. And you're okay with this?" "You know how your mother is. She's trying to keep the peace." "By excluding me?" "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" My hands shook. "Dad, do you want me there?" 5 seconds. 10. 15. He cleared his throat. "I think it's better if you listen to your mother this year." Something inside me went empty. "Okay, Dad." "Elira, don't." I hung up. He didn't call back. My father had a chance to choose me. He chose silence. As darkness settled, so did a decision. If I wasn't welcome at their table, I'd make my own Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving Day arrived gray and cold. I woke to my neighbor's family overhead, footsteps, laughter, the smell of stuffing through the vents. My phone stayed silent. Around noon, I opened Instagram. Kalina's post from 30 minutes ago, the whole family around the table. Mom, Dad, Kalina, Brad, their toddler in a turkey sweater, everyone smiling. Caption: so grateful for my family. These are the people who matter most. #blessed, #family first. I zoomed in, counted place settings. 4 adults, 1 toddler, 5 chairs. No empty seat where I should have been. They hadn't just excluded me. They'd erased me. I stared at the ceiling. I could order delivery, spend the day in bed. That's what the dramatic daughter deserves, right? But something refused. No. I grabbed my coat. If I was eating Thanksgiving alone, it would be somewhere with light, with life. Harborview Grill, dark wood, brass fixtures, cloth napkins, and candles. One of the few Boston restaurants open on Thanksgiving. Warmth hit me at the door. Roasted turkey, fresh bread, soft clinking of glasses, and everywhere, families. The hostess looked at me with pity. Just one tonight? Just one. She led me to a corner table between the kitchen door and a large family occupying 3 tables pushed together. Your server will be right with you. I sat, opened the menu with unsteady hands, tried to look like this was a choice. The family beside me was 3 generations. An older couple, probably late 60s, silver-haired man with laugh lines, woman with kind eyes. Their son with his wife and 2 children coloring on placemats, and a younger man, maybe 30, making everyone laugh with animated stories. They passed dishes without asking. Here, take more. Pass the gravy. Someone said something funny and they all laughed, real, belly laughter that made the children giggle and the grandmother wipe her eyes. I watched from the corner of my eye. This is what family is supposed to look like. The server came. Can I start you with something? Just water and the Thanksgiving special. I was going to get through this. I wasn't fine. My turkey arrived. Golden skin, perfect cranberry sauce, mashed potatoes. Magazine-worthy. I couldn't taste any of it. I pushed food around my plate, trying not to look at the family, trying not to think about my own family in Connecticut, laughing without a thought of the daughter they'd discarded. And suddenly, I understood. This wasn't about Thanksgiving. This wasn't about Kalina's pregnancy. This was about a pattern that had shaped my entire life. 28 years of trying to earn a place at their table, bending into smaller shapes, swallowing hurt, apologizing for feelings, staying quiet, being told I was too much. What had it gotten me? A corner table, eating alone, an Instagram photo with no empty chair, increasingly smaller concessions, quieter complaints, desperate attempts to be worthy of love that should have been freely given. If I kept shrinking, at some point there'd be nothing left. The tears came before I could stop them. I turned toward the window, grabbed my napkin, tried to disappear like I always did. Honey? I froze. A woman's voice, warm, concerned. I looked up. An older woman stood beside my table, silver hair in an elegant bun, kind eyes, a face that looked like it had spent a lifetime listening. Deep purple cardigan, pearl earrings. She was looking at me like I mattered. Are you okay? I looked up at the woman standing beside my table. Silver hair, kind eyes, a deep purple cardigan. She was looking at me with genuine concern, not pity. I'm fine, I said automatically, the lie I'd perfected over 28 years. Just allergies. The woman raised one eyebrow, not judging, just knowing. Allergies don't usually make people cry into their napkin on Thanksgiving. I let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. That obvious? Only to someone who's paying attention. Her voice was gentle, but steady underneath. I'm Eleanor. Elira. Eleanor glanced back at her family, then at me. Well, Elira, no one should eat alone on this day. Why don't you come join us? I shook my head immediately. Oh no, I couldn't. I don't want to intrude. You're not intruding. I'm inviting. She smiled. There's a difference. I really appreciate it, but my husband tells terrible jokes, Eleanor continued as if I hadn't spoken. And my son Kyle keeps trying to start political debates. You might as well come suffer with us. From the big table, the older man waved at me. She won't take no for an answer. Trust me, 43 years and I've never won an argument. The younger man, Kyle apparently, grinned. He's not wrong. I looked at my cold turkey, my empty table, my napkin damp with tears. Then I looked at Eleanor Caldwell and her warm eyes and her family that somehow had room for a stranger. Okay, I heard myself say, if you're sure. I'm sure. Eleanor put her hand on my shoulder. Come on, we just opened another bottle of wine and there's way too much pie. Tank. They made room for me like I'd always been there. Someone pulled up a chair. Someone else handed me a plate. Before I could even sit down properly, I had a glass of wine in my hand and a warm roll on my plate. I'm Robert, the older man said, shaking my hand firmly. His grip was warm, solid. This is my wife Eleanor, our son Daniel and his wife Sarah, their kids Emma and Lucas, and our youngest, Kyle. Hi. I gave an awkward little wave to the table. I'm Elira. Thank you so much for— What do you do, Elira? Daniel asked, passing me the mashed potatoes before I could finish. I'm a graphic designer, art director actually, freelance mostly. That's wonderful, Sarah said warmly. I can barely draw a stick figure. Mom, stick figures are easy, Emma said seriously. She looked about 8 with her mother's brown eyes. Even I can do that. Everyone laughed, not at anyone, with each other. It was such a foreign sound. Kyle caught my eye from across the table. He was around my age, maybe a year or two older, with dark hair and an easy smile. Fair warning, my dad's about to tell a joke. I am not, Robert protested. He is, Eleanor said, taking a sip of wine. Robert grinned. Okay, fine. What did the turkey say to the computer? Dad, no. Daniel groaned. Google, Google, Google! The kids burst into giggles. Sarah rolled her eyes affectionately. Kyle shook his head but smiled. And I actually laughed. A real laugh for the first time all day. Robert raised his wine glass. A toast to unexpected guests who make our table complete. Everyone raised their glasses, including me. I looked around at these people, strangers, all of them, until 15 minutes ago, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Warmth, acceptance, belonging. I didn't know families could feel like this. After the main course, while the kids ran off to explore the restaurant and the men argued about football, Eleanor moved to the chair beside mine. How are you doing? She asked quietly. Really? I looked down at my plate. Better. This is really nice. Thank you. You're welcome. She took a sip of her wine. But that's not what I asked. Something about her directness made me want to be honest. I'm okay, just having a hard Thanksgiving. Do you want to tell me why you're really here alone? I hesitated. The truth felt too pathetic to say out loud. My own mother told me not to come home. My sister thinks I'm drama. My father chose silence over me. But Eleanor waited, patient, no judgment in her eyes. My mom called me 3 days ago, I finally said. Told me not to come home for Thanksgiving. My sister Kalina is pregnant and she didn't want drama. Drama? Eleanor's voice was careful. That's what they call it when I ask questions they don't want to answer. I took a long drink of wine, like why I wasn't invited to family events, or why I'm always the one expected to accommodate everyone else. Eleanor nodded slowly. I see. It's fine, I added quickly. I mean, it's not fine, but— It's not fine, Eleanor said gently but firmly. Can I tell you something I learned in 30 years as a family lawyer? I blinked. You're a lawyer? Retired. Family law. She smiled. I've seen every kind of family dysfunction you can imagine, and I've learned that the people who accuse you of causing drama are usually the ones creating it. They just need someone to blame. The words hit me like a physical force. I couldn't speak. You're not the problem, Elira. Eleanor put her hand over mine. You never were. Those were the words I'd needed to hear my entire life. My eyes burned. How do you— Because I was you. Eleanor's voice was soft. 40 years ago, I was sitting exactly where you are now. I looked at her, at this elegant woman with her loving family, and couldn't imagine it. My parents wanted me to get married young, stay home, take care of my younger brother, Eleanor said. When I got accepted to Harvard Law School, they told me I was choosing strangers over family, that I was being selfish, dramatic. She paused. Sound familiar? I nodded, unable to speak. I left anyway, built my own life, met Robert in my second year of law school, started my own practice, had 2 beautiful sons. She looked at her family across the table. I built my own family, and you can too. I don't know how, I whispered. You just did. Eleanor squeezed my hand. You showed up. You let yourself be helped. That's how it starts. She pulled out a business card from her purse, cream-colored with elegant black text. Eleanor Caldwell, J.D., Family Law, retired. Below that, a phone number and an address in Brookline. If you ever need to talk, she said, call me, I mean it. Robert appeared beside us. Sunday dinners every week at our place. You're welcome any time. I shook my head automatically. That's so kind, but I couldn't— You could, Kyle said, joining them. And you should. Mom never says things she doesn't mean. Trust me. Eleanor smiled. Family isn't blood, Elira. It's showing up. I stood there in the restaurant lobby as we prepared to leave, holding a business card from a woman I'd met 3 hours ago, receiving an open invitation from a family I had no claim to. Okay, I said. Maybe I'll stop by sometime. Eleanor smiled like she'd known I'd say yes all along. I didn't go to Sunday dinner the next week, or the week after that. It felt too strange, too forward, too much like I was imposing on someone else's family. But Eleanor called. Just to check in, she said. Just to see how I was doing. By early December, I finally accepted. That first Sunday, I stood on the Caldwell's porch in Brookline for 5 full minutes before I worked up the courage to knock. The house was a beautiful Victorian with a wraparound porch and lights in every window. It looked like the kind of place where good things happened. Eleanor opened the door before I could change my mind. There you are. She pulled me into a hug like it was the most natural thing in the world. We saved you a seat. That was the first of many Sundays. Over the next 6 months, I became a regular at the Caldwell dinner table. Robert taught me to play chess, even though I lost every single game. Eleanor showed me her secret pie crust recipe, the one she swore she'd never written down. Daniel's kids started calling me Aunt Elira without anyone telling them to, and Kyle and I became friends, real friends, the kind who texted random thoughts at 2 a.m. and argued about movies and sat next to each other at dinner without anyone having to arrange it. I didn't hear from my biological family once. Not a call, not a text, not even a Christmas card. For the first time in my life, I stopped noticing, because for the first time, I wasn't performing for love. I wasn't shrinking myself to fit into someone else's expectations. I was just loved. It felt like finally coming home. One spring afternoon, about 8 months after that first Thanksgiving, Kyle asked me to meet him for coffee. We sat in a small cafe in Cambridge, the kind with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. Kyle was nervous. I could tell by the way he kept adjusting his napkin. Elira, I need to tell you something. He took a breath. I've been feeling confused lately. My stomach dropped. Confused? About us. He looked at me directly. I have feelings for you, not just friend feelings, but I'm scared. I set down my coffee cup carefully. Scared of what? Scared of ruining our friendship. Scared of making you uncomfortable with my family. Scared that people will think I'm taking advantage of your situation. He rubbed his face. You came to us for family, not for this. Something in my chest loosened. Kyle, I'm scared too. He looked up. You are? Terrified. If this doesn't work out, I lose your family. I lose the only people who've ever made me feel like I belong. I took a shaky breath. but I'm tired of making myself smaller because of fear. We could take it slow, Kyle said. No pressure. But I want you to know, my family loves you whether we're together or not. That doesn't change. I looked at this man who'd been my friend, my confidant, my safe place to land. Then let's try, slowly. He smiled, that easy smile that had made me feel welcome from the very first night. Slowly. 1 year after that first Thanksgiving, on a spring evening that smelled of rain and blooming flowers, Eleanor and I were sitting on her back porch. The garden was starting to bloom, tulips pushing up through the soil, birds fighting over the feeder. Have you heard from your parents? Eleanor asked. I watched a robin land on the fence. No, and I haven't reached out either. She nodded, no judgment in her eyes. Do you want to? I thought about it, really thought about it. Sometimes in the middle of the night, I'll think about calling my mom, trying to explain. But then I remember there's nothing to explain. She knows what she did. She just doesn't think it was wrong. That's a hard thing to accept. It is. I pulled my cardigan tighter against the spring breeze. Eleanor was quiet for a moment. You know, in my career, I helped a lot of people find legal recognition for the families they've built, not the ones they were born into. I turned to look at her. What do you mean? She took a sip of her tea. Just that the law recognizes what the heart already knows. Family can be created, not just inherited. There are ways to make those bonds official, if a person wants to. I didn't fully understand what she was hinting at. Something to think about, Eleanor said. Whenever you're ready. She patted my hand and changed the subject to her tomato plants, but her words stayed with me, taking root slowly. 2 years after that first Thanksgiving, Kyle and I weren't just friends anymore. We were something more, something that had grown so gradually that when we finally acknowledged it, it felt less like a beginning and more like a recognition of what had always been there. When he asked me to move in with him, it felt natural, right. And one evening, 6 months after that, Eleanor invited me to tea, just the two of us. We sat in her living room, afternoon light streaming through the windows. She poured Earl Grey into delicate china cups. Elira, I want to talk to you about something important. Eleanor set down the teapot. Robert and I have been discussing this, and we wanted to offer you something, but only if you want it. No pressure at all. Okay, I said slowly. Adult adoption. She looked at me steadily. It's a legal process where a consenting adult is formally adopted by another family. It creates a legal parent-child relationship. New birth certificate, new legal parents, everything. My heart pounded. That's real? Very real. I've helped many people through the process. She leaned forward. Robert and we'd like to adopt you. Legally, officially, if you want. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. You'd become Elira Caldwell, Eleanor said softly. We'd be your legal parents. Daniel and Kyle would be your legal brothers. Her eyes glistened. But we've considered you our daughter since that first Thanksgiving. We're just offering to make it official. You want to adopt me? My voice cracked. At 29 years old? Age doesn't matter. Love matters. Eleanor's voice was firm. So what do you say, sweetheart? Will you let us be your family? Really and truly? The tears came then. Yes. Yes. I want that. Eleanor pulled me into her arms. Then let's make it official. Several months later at the courthouse. The adoption process had taken time. Paperwork, court appearances, legal filings. But with Eleanor guiding me through every step, it felt less like bureaucracy and more like ceremony. Now I stood in a courtroom with Robert and Eleanor on either side of me. Kyle and Daniel sat in the front row with Sarah and the kids. Everyone had come. The judge reviewed the final documents. This is always one of my favorite cases, she said, smiling. Families choosing each other. Ms. Hall, or should I say, Ms. Caldwell, do you consent to this adoption? I do, I said, my voice steady. Mr. and Mrs. Caldwell, do you accept Elira as your legal daughter with all the rights and responsibilities that entails? We do, they said together. The judge signed the final order. Then, by the power vested in me by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I declare this adoption final and binding. Congratulations, Elira Caldwell. May your new family bring you all the love you deserve. The gavel came down. I was Elira Caldwell. Legally, officially, forever. Eleanor pulled me into her arms, both of us crying. Robert wrapped his arms around both of us. Welcome home, daughter. Kyle stood at a distance, tears streaming down his face, smiling so wide. Emma and Lucas were jumping up and down. Aunt Elira is officially our aunt now! We went to Harborview Grill to celebrate, the restaurant where it all began. Robert raised his glass. To Elira Caldwell, you were always ours in spirit. Now you're ours on paper, too. I looked around at my family, my real family, and felt complete. I spent 29 years trying to earn love from people who would never give it, I said, my voice thick with emotion. And then I found you, a family who gave it freely. I don't know what I did to deserve this, but I promise I'll spend the rest of my life making you proud. Eleanor's tears fell freely. You already make us proud. Every single day. I was home, finally, completely, legally home. 2 years after becoming Elira Caldwell, Kyle took me back to Harborview Grill. This feels circular, I said, sliding into our booth. Kyle was nervous. That's the point. He took my hand. Elira, I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you. Every single day. My heart stopped. I know you're scared of being let down, but I'm not going anywhere. I never have been. He pulled out a velvet box. Elira Caldwell, will you marry me? Yes, I whispered. Yes. The restaurant applauded. In the corner booth, Robert and Eleanor, champagne already poured, beaming. Mom couldn't resist, Kyle laughed. Wedding planning began, but one question kept me up at night. What to write on the invitations for parents of the bride? I couldn't put Colwyn and Delphina Hall. They hadn't spoken to me in 3 years. One evening I was pacing when Eleanor found me. What's troubling you, sweetheart? I told her about the impossible line. What does your heart tell you to write? Robert and Eleanor Caldwell. But nothing. You are legally our daughter. This isn't pretend. Eleanor squeezed my hand. They made their choice 3 years ago. Now you get to make yours. We designed the invitations. Parents of the bride, Robert and Eleanor Caldwell. The family who chose her. 3 months before the wedding, an unknown number texted, "This is Kalina. Did you know Mom is losing her mind because you're getting married and didn't tell us?" I blocked it. A week later, my mother called 5 times. I let them go to voicemail. Finally, a text. "Why didn't you tell us? We're your family. Call me back immediately." 3 years of silence. And now they suddenly remembered me. I deleted it. Kyle found me staring at my phone. "Everything okay?" "My biological family found out." "What do you want to do?" "Nothing. I don't owe them anything." 2 weeks later, my doorbell rang. I opened it. My mother stood there, older, grayer, but with the same disappointed expression. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "What are you doing? Getting married without telling your own mother?" "We haven't spoken in 3 years." "And whose fault is that?" "Yours." She pushed past me, saw photos on my bookshelf, the Caldwells. "Who are these people?" "My family." "I am your family." "You were. You chose not to be." Her face contorted. "These strangers aren't your family." "Those strangers adopted me, legally, 2 years ago. I'm Elira Caldwell now." The color drained from her face. "You can't just replace us." "I didn't replace you. You abandoned me first." "I want an invitation to the wedding." "No." "If you don't invite us, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of daughter you are." Something inside me turned to steel. "Do it. I'm not afraid of you anymore. Goodbye, Mom." She left, radiating anger. 2 months before the wedding, Daniel called with concerns. "What if your bio mom shows up and causes a scene? Maybe don't announce Mom and Dad as parents of the bride." Eleanor overheard. "Elira, what do you want?" "I want to celebrate my truth. I'm tired of making myself small." Eleanor nodded. "Then that's what we'll do. We'll hire security. If they show up, we deal with it together." June in Napa Valley. My wedding day. Golden morning. Vineyard stretching forever. In the bridal suite, Eleanor adjusted my veil. You look beautiful. A security guard knocked. Mrs. Caldwell, 3 people at the entrance. Colwyn Hall, Delphina Hall, and Kalina Collins. All 3. Kyle appeared. I'll handle it. No, let them in. Seat them in the back. Let them see what they lost. The ceremony was perfect. Robert walked me down the aisle. Kyle's vows made everyone cry. Then at the reception, the MC stepped to the microphone. Please join me in welcoming the parents of the bride. Delphina straightened, preparing to be acknowledged. Robert and Eleanor Caldwell! Applause erupted. Robert and Eleanor stood, beaming. Across the room, my mother's face went white. Confusion, disbelief, realization. She pushed through the crowd. What is going on? Who are those people? My legal parents. I was adopted 2 years ago. You can't replace us. I didn't replace you. You abandoned me first. You chose Kalina. Every time, for 29 years. Guests nearby turned, watching, and then my father spoke, voice breaking. Elira, I'm sorry. I looked at him. Colwyn Hall, older, tears in his eyes. I should have done better. I was a coward. I knew how they treated you, and I just stood there. His voice trembled. You were my little girl, and I let them make you feel like you didn't matter. I'm so sorry. The words I'd waited for. Too late. I know you're sorry, Dad, but sorry doesn't undo the years you stood by. Sorry doesn't give me back my childhood. I know. He nodded, wiping his eyes. Eleanor appeared at my shoulder. Delphina glared at her. You stole my daughter! I didn't steal anything, Mrs. Hall. Robert stepped forward. I think it's time for you to leave. Who are you to tell us? I'm her father, legally and in every way that matters. You stole our daughter! No, ma'am, you gave her away. We just picked up what you threw out. Robert's voice was calm. 5 years ago, this woman was sitting alone in a restaurant on Thanksgiving because you told her she wasn't welcome. My wife invited her to our table. We treated her like a human being. He paused. She told us she couldn't remember the last time she felt wanted by her own family. Delphina couldn't speak. We didn't steal your daughter. We just showed her what family looks like. He nodded to security. Please escort them out. I held up my hand. Wait. I walked toward them. Mom? Dad? Kalina? I don't hate you. You're just people who couldn't love me the way I needed. But I've made peace with who I am, someone who deserves to be chosen first. You didn't choose me, they did, and I choose them. Goodbye. As they were escorted out, the guests applauded. 1 year later, Thanksgiving at the Caldwell house. 5 years after I'd sat alone at Harborview Grill, Emily, my 6-month-old, passed from lap to lap. Daniel's kids playing, Sarah and Kyle arguing about the turkey, Robert sneaking pie. Before we eat, a toast, Eleanor said. Elira? I stood, Emily in my arms. 5 years ago tonight, I was sitting alone, wondering if I'd ever belong. I thought I was unlovable. I paused. Then Eleanor Caldwell said, no one should eat alone on this day, and everything changed. I raised my glass. To family, not the one we're born into, but the one we build, the one we choose. To family! Later, Kyle and I sat on the porch, Emily asleep between us. Do you ever think about them? He asked. Sometimes, in the middle of the night. I looked at Emily. But I don't have room for sadness anymore. My life is too full. I whispered to Emily. You'll never have to wonder if you're wanted. You'll always know. Through the window, my family laughed and talked. I'd spent 29 years trying to earn love from people who would never give it. Then I spent 5 years learning what love actually looks like. Not from the family I was born into, but from the family that chose me. I was finally home.